Hi, everyone. I hope this message finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I could not be more delighted to have the pleasure of interviewing Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons, JD, who understands that rebirth doesn't always follow loss. It can also follow the closing of a life chapter, such as retirement. Elizabeth graduated magna cum laude from Georgetown University Law Center and summa cum laude from James Madison University, laying the foundation for a distinguished career in law and professional development. For more than 20 years, she has guided legal professionals through pivotal career transitions, helping them craft meaningful, purpose-driven lives beyond the practice of law. As a retirement transition expert, attorney, and co-founder of 2 consulting firms, Elizabeth combines her sharp analytical acumen with deep emotional intelligence. Her work illuminates the often neglected psychological dimensions of retirement, empowering clients to embrace this life chapter with clarity, confidence, and renewed purpose. Before founding her national consulting firm, Elizabeth practiced law at the premier international law firm Milbank, but it was her own pivot from law to a new professional calling that revealed a deeper truth. Retirement isn't just a financial milestone, it's a profound emotional and identity shift. Her book, Encore, A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement, is a compassionate guide for those facing this inflection point with uncertainty, grief, or even fear. Elizabeth's mission to help high achievers approach retirement with intention, optimism, and purpose offers actionable strategies for planning beyond the numbers and exploring what it means to truly thrive in that next chapter of life. I'm looking forward to an inspiring and powerful conversation with Elizabeth, who will be speaking to us from Tucson, Arizona, about the difficulty and blind spots she encountered exiting her intense career, why retirement often includes an element of grieving, her transition to a retirement transition expert, her actionable strategies for approaching retirement with a sense of intention and optimism, her book titled Encore, A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement, and so much more. If you're contemplating retirement, supporting someone who is, or simply curious about how we evolve through change, this conversation will surely open your heart and expand your perspective. Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life. Hi, Elizabeth. A warm, heartfelt welcome to Grief and Rebirth.
Well, thank you very much. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I know we're going to have a great conversation because a lot of people they think about grief with loss of a person, but grief also involves a loss in a marriage or a loss in a career and all of that. And I know a lot of very high-powered people who give everything they've got to their career, and then what?
Exactly. It is one of the most sweeping changes that most adults will ever live through, really, if they've been intense career professionals. And as we will certainly get into later, we are all sort of told to focus on nothing but making sure we've got financial security as we think about this. And while I don't diminish the importance of that, of course, there is so much more one has to grapple with when they reach this moment. And I think as we'll talk about, I myself had to embrace change far earlier than most people do with retirement. And boy, was I shocked at what that ended up meaning for me.
Yeah, I'll bet. You know what I really love about your expertise is that you have a huge emotional IQ.
Hmm.
And I think that my personal opinion is just that many people who are in these high-powered jobs, they're not allowed to have feelings. They have to be on autopilot all the time, and they can't and there's a lot of hurtful things that get said and done and betrayals and all kinds of things that go on in those high-powered in everyday life, let alone a high-powered profession, and they probably have never really they're probably at the end of their career saddled with all these feelings also that they've never dealt with, right? I would imagine.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I think intense business contexts and certainly law firms can be this way. You've got to have your armor on all the time. You are there at the service of others. No one cares how you feel. No one wants to hear about it, and one of your actual skills is to completely subordinate all of that to what either the firm needs of you, your clients or colleagues need of you. And that's what ultimately you are admired for. And
Right.
so when it comes time to put all that down, I mean, for many other reasons as well, you haven't been flexing the muscles of what do I want? How do I feel? What are my feelings telling me? I mean, those are tools and abilities that we all have as humans, but they get quite out of use, I think, for most people.
Absolutely, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean,
Yeah.
really, I agree. Not only that, they probably come to you and say, "I don't even know who I am
Yeah.
without this job."
That's right.
So let's begin so people can understand what happened to you. Let's
Yes.
begin with, could you describe your high-powered, intense personality that used to be, not as much now, I think, and career, and why you chose to leave your career, what you went through, and the difficulty and blind spots you encountered exiting it, which laid the groundwork for what you're doing now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I will say I do think there's some hardwiring here. I was always this little high achiever type, so much so I remember being a kid in grade school, insisting that I was going to be the one with top marks and held myself to that standard, mainly because it struck me, at least at that time, that that's what the world appreciated about you is the ability to please them. And so, yes, I was groomed into a consummate people pleaser and, was lauded over and over for the ability to do those things that third parties would applaud. And that, blindly carried me up a number of ladders, including working full time while I went to law school at Georgetown at night, took, very high honors there. But again, the immense amount of work. And I will tell you that I literally honed this ability to shut out anything about what I really wanted from a heart place. And it was all about what I thought the world wanted of me. And so, of course, law was the perfect career to land in. I did, felt very lucky to be embraced by one of the world's best international law firms. And I hit the ground running and did that for 10 years. In the midst of all of it, started a family. And
Just
thanks.
because you had nothing else to do.
Yeah. Yeah. My joke used to be, oh, I'm not doing anything between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. What do you need to, what do you need? But one day I sort of, proverbially woke up and realized I had an 18-month-old, a 3-year-old, an 80-hour-a-week job, and I was going to work to earn money so I could pay all these other people to live my life for me so I could go to work and earn money. And I won't get into my very difficult marriage, but that was also not helping things. And so I sort of woke up one day all out of answers, and the only viable option appeared to me to be to let the career go because I could not be that A-plus person as a mother and as the lawyer I wanted to be. My marriage was in shambles and the whole thing wasn't working. And I said to myself at the time and to everyone else who thought I'd lost my mind, don't worry, I've got this figured out. I'm just front ending my retirement. I'm going to borrow some time now when I need it, help get my kids raised a little bit, be more present in that part of my life. And then whatever, I can earn money later. That's not going to be a problem. But I literally used this retirement construct as a way to make sense of what I was doing, which was pitching, about 15 years of incredibly hard work right out the window,
Right.
essentially starting over.
That's a very big comment about your strength, the strength of who you are, to be able to know your truth
Mm.
and face down all the outside opinions and influences, and that's usually pretty hard for most of us to do. And I think it's, that again points to your emotional IQ because you were in touch with who you are. So it seems to me, though, that you had merged the proof of your success with your sense of self-worth. And now you're no longer a human doing. So what was the path to learning to be a human being, and how did this lead you to this surprising new path?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because, of course, when I took this big leap, I decided to leave the hustle and bustle of DC and, move out to Tucson where it was less expensive. And I thought, okay, I need to quiet my life down and figure out who I am and dig into this motherhood thing. And after the euphoria, look, the first 3 months wore off, I was utterly lost. I mean, I adored my children. I adored being with them in this role now, but it was using sort of a sliver of who I understood myself to be. I had lost all of that stimulating work, all the intellectual challenge. I'd left all the people behind. I did not know how to function in a world where time scarcity was not my primary companion.
Wow.
And so for me, pressure had always been the water I swam in. Always since the time I was tiny, I would create pressure so that I could see if I could do it. And suddenly I was all out of the pressure. I was all out of time scarcity. It was just me and me. And it left me feeling utterly aimless. And I did not know who I was. I did not know how to function. And I didn't know how my life was supposed to work. And for the first time in my life, I was terrified that I didn't have an answer. It wasn't about doing. There was nothing to do about it. I was going to have to get inside of myself and look for answers there and live my way to a new Elizabeth. And that was so terrifying and so lonely. And I didn't want to admit to anybody that I was this lost, especially the people who had looked at me quizzically when I told them I was throwing my whole life out the window and moving. So it was a pretty demoralizing time, to be honest.
Right. It sounds like, I know you have a phrase now that you use, retirement anxiety. And it sounds like you were completely living that. How did the dots connect to
Mm.
getting you to where you are?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of personal learning and studying that I did. I embarked on all sorts of that stuff in the background.
Started reading and looking into.
Yes, psychology, spirituality, what makes a meaningful life, what is the self? I mean, I had been so focused on things outside of myself that I hadn't gotten curious about myself at all. And so there was that going on. But of course, eventually I needed to make my way to some professional engagement. And I began working in the talent space, really as a recruiter, working with lawyers who wanted to change their positions in law firms. And then the collapse of 2008 happened, which absolutely destroyed my business overnight when Lehman Brothers collapsed. So that was another giant blow. But in the wreckage of that, what I realized was, oh my gosh, all of these other people are going to be foisted out of their law firms, laid off, no pathway. They're going to have to reinvent themselves the way I did. And I know I can help them. I did this. I know what this feels like. And I think I have a series of, ways to look at oneself and one's life that could be helpful. So I began putting a program together and working with people in 2009 who had lost their jobs and had to, they'd gone from the heights of success to jobless and prospectless and didn't know where to turn or what to do. And that's how this all began. Later, of course, I began working with people facing retirement because that particular crisis passed. But it was interesting that the collapse of my first business, which I really didn't enjoy that much, is what really led me to reach into the self-healing I'd done and discover a complete format for helping other people do the same thing.
And if you hadn't done your work on yourself, you would have been able to help other people,
Absolutely.
right? So I know that retirement often includes grieving, which you were doing. Did you also feel anger? I mean, I know some people feel anger also, right? Who come to you?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think I was more grieving than angry. I think I was angry that there was not a way to be a successful lawyer and mother at the same time. And I didn't find it anyway. I think there are those who do figure it out. I didn't figure it out. And I think I was possibly mad about that. But, I think the other reality is that I was more grieving because I loved what I did and I loved the people. I loved the challenge. And, but I also loved my kids and I loved what that held for me. I will never regret,
No.
that decision. And so, but it doesn't mean that letting go of something meaningful isn't still difficult. Now, when we're working with people who've been doing this job for 3 or 4 decades, look, increasingly law firms are asking their partners to leave at 55, 58,
Oh
60
my gosh.
to make room for the younger generation. It's a trend that's really taken off in the last 15 years. So there are plenty of people who are angry about that. They're like, look, I'm 60, I'm at the height of my powers. I'm fantastic at what I do. Why am I being asked to move on? And it's not about your ability or your skill. It's just a marketplace that's changed. But I say to them, the good news is, yes, you are going to have to do that final lap and you want to do it with your hands in the air, high-fiving everyone on the way out because you have got the opportunity of a lifetime ahead of you, but you've got to be intentional about crafting it. If you default into all the habits that guided you into a successful legal career, you are going to probably find that you are rather lost in this new chapter because you are not going to be reacting to everybody else's needs anymore. You've got to author your life. And here it is.
I love how you're introducing them to change
Yeah.
because so many people are afraid of change
Mhm.
and transition. That's wonderful. For the people who are listening, if they have relatives or loved ones or anyone who's nearing retirement and they think that just so that they can identify what are the kinds of symptoms
Mhm.
that are connected to retirement anxiety that our listeners can hear so they will understand that their loved one may be going through something like this.
Yes, absolutely. So if we're talking about folks ahead of retirement, but who are sort of having to confront it in the relatively near term, what I see that sort of indicates maybe somebody is very unsettled about this and doesn't feel like they have a confident, intentional plan. First of all, they may repeatedly push their date. So, find excuses to push the date out, push the date out. They resist active succession planning. They resist talking about what they are going to be doing in the future. So the whole topic is something that almost brings up a sense of shame. And so resistance is what you will see of in whatever shape that takes. People get, lethargic. They can get resentful and negative about what they're being asked to do to help pave the way for a smooth transition. They may be frustrated. So a lot of negative emotion, really, because it is resistance. There is not an embracing of this as a change filled with opportunity. It's more like, oh my gosh, this is the
Well,
beginning of the end.
right, my life is over.
Yes,
I bet a bunch of them get depressed, and it probably affects personal relationships. So, hey, everyone out there, if you've got someone approaching retirement and you're all of a sudden finding him or her getting very maybe testy or difficult, I would imagine that may be something they're not even in touch with, but that's at the base of that. And
absolutely.
right. And then maybe they start to rely on substances or
Mhm.
worry about their morbidity, right? So let's go to what you do to help these people. So someone is getting ready to retire. They're lost. They don't know what they're doing. They're feeling not so wonderful. But then someone says, maybe you ought to talk to Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons, and she can help you make advanced planning for
Mhm.
this retirement thing that'll even provide you financial security. How do you go about that? And what is that all about? Why do they come to see you? How does that prepare them?
So I always tell people that there are at least two sort of meta projects that any human being's got to embrace if they're going to move through this change with confidence, excitement, and energy, and sort of feel that sense of optimistic future. One is there's a project around identity bridging that
Oh.
I'll talk about in a second. And the other is really life restructuring, because when you think about it, your professional life has almost certainly been the primary scaffolding of the way your life. It's this very strong central part of your structure, your schedule, your routine, and all the rest of life sort of tucks in around the edges. So if you just pull it right out of the center with no thought about how to restructure your days, your weeks, even your whole year, it is so disorienting, and people will often sort of feel like they're just wandering around trying to kill time. They're just sort of like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't have anything coming at me anymore. I don't have anything to respond or react to. And so no one needs me. No one wants me. What's the point? And they sit, they drift over to the sofa and start watching TV all day. I mean, it's really tough if you don't have a sort of a proactive way to redesign your days. So the identity piece as well, there's a very interesting bit of psychology around the fact that part of what shapes our identity is a sense of agency, a sense of community, and a sense of cohesion. Agency being we know how to make stuff happen, communion being we know where we belong, and cohesion being we know what the patterns of our lives are. Well, when you think about it, retirement disrupts all three of those things, every single one of those. So if you want to be intentional about reshaping your identity and bridging, you've got to think about, how am I going to redeploy my talents and skills? New agency. Where am I going to find my new communities? And how am I going to reshape my routines and my habits so I have a newfound sense of cohesion? If you rebuild those things with intention, first of all, it's fun. Second of all, you are shaping literally your identity. You are rebuilding yourself and putting yourself in the path of new opportunity. And that gets fun and juicy. It's like graduating from college again.
You're giving them new purpose. They're getting new purpose in their lives. I would think in some ways it could be very liberating.
Well, and that's what I tell everybody. Think of this as another graduation. Do not think of it just as the end of something. It's really the beginning of something.
And is this what you do as part of your Encore program?
Absolutely. We have, we facilitate people through a series of exercises and stories that help to build definitions for these things. And then we work on brainstorming the ideas that really excite them. And then we build pathways of action toward those things. And when people can get into action toward exciting, new, inspiring ideas, that's when all the magic happens. That's when the people show up. That's when the universe shows up to help you. That's when the most surprising opportunities appear. But you are the one, they must be energized by you. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door and hand you that. So it takes planning, it takes work, but it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. Wow. You want to give us some of the actionable strategies that you use to help a client that's turning this retirement into excitement? I mean, you're telling them to change and by the way, now they no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they can actually sleep a little later.
Exactly. So of course there are many, many pieces, but I'll share some of the most actionable ideas that we get repeated feedback about. One thing we talk about a lot is becoming the creator, right? Instead of the reactor. And it's funny, those words have the same letters in them, but they mean very different things. So what we say to people is, think about your first year out of this career and almost think of it as a sabbatical. Take a sabbatical year and say to yourself, I'm going to reflect on who I am and what I want to be. I don't have to have an answer right away. And when people ask me what I'm going to go do, and everyone will, just tell them you're taking a sabbatical, which sends back the message, hey, I'm going to take a thoughtful year for myself, but I'm not gone. I'll be back. I'm going to be doing things. And then buy yourself an annual planning calendar so you can see the entire year with your eyeballs instead of 1 week on your phone, and put yourself at the end of this year, this coming year, and say, if it's a spectacular year, what would I have done? Who would I have seen? What great adventures would I have shared with the people I love? And begin to build this year. Build it in advance. Plan it for yourself. You must author it. And we also say to people, once you've started to identify some of those exciting, big dreams that you still have, that you still haven't done, when you notice saying to yourself, like, well, I don't have the skill to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't have any way to think I could do it. Don't let that stop you. Start making plans. And there are 2 questions we tell everyone to answer for themselves. 1, what else do I need to know? And 2, who can help? And those 2 questions are the beginning of everything, because one of them tells you what to research and one of them tells you who to go meet with to get advice and get more introductions. And when people follow that pathway in the direction of the ideas they're excited about, that's when we see the most outstanding developments. So it's getting that action moving.
Now, do you help people online through Zoom, or do they meet you in person? How does that work?
So they typically meet us in person, and with Encore, which is our premier program, they will work with us individually over 2 days. So it's a very intensive, high touch program. We also have group programs that people can attend in a group over 2 days. We also do have a 1-day Zoom-based program that has most of these elements as well. So we've tried over the years to create different price points and experiences that work for people no matter their circumstances. And then, of course, I did write the book with the idea that I could share as much of this as possible, a $10 format that anyone can
Right.
get.
So the first actionable strategy for someone listening is to buy Elizabeth's book, read the book, and then give her a call, and then you can strategize more. And you actually do help them make connections also?
Yes.
Like, you do that, which is wonderful. Like, if a person's a little stuck, you'll have places they can go, people they can talk to and all that.
Absolutely. After 15 years of working with people in this role, we have got an unbelievable set of relationships and resources just about in every direction you can dream of.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what career they're retiring from.
That's right.
You can help them. They could be in philanthropy or something. That's so far removed from.
Yeah. In all different career paths, and people who've sold businesses, any major inflection point where you're sort of leaving a big commitment like this behind. Absolutely.
That's great. So now let's talk about this wonderful book of yours. It's called Encore, A High Achiever's Guide to Thriving in Retirement. And I know that it redefines retirement as a gateway to new opportunities, meaning and accomplishment. And you also explain comfort zones. So please tell us what a comfort zone is, which you're sort of talking about maybe. Is that year in between? And you talk about leaving it suddenly or gradually, the difference. And also anything else you'd like to tell our audience about your book?
I think the comfort zone is such a helpful model to understand, because when I meet a client who, let's say, is a year away from retiring, they are squarely in their comfort zone, right? They know who they are, what they're doing, how to do their thing. They're probably at the very top of their skill set in their industry. And so talk about comfort zone, they got it. And everything they still want is outside their comfort zone. If they've got a deferred life they never lived, if they've got a big goal they still haven't achieved, it's something that's outside their comfort zone, or else they'd already have it. And so what I say to them is, it's always uncomfortable leaving your comfort zone, right? So it's okay. You're going to be uncomfortable. Don't worry about that part. You just need to do it gradually. Because if you fling yourself out of your comfort zone, the way I did, by the way, you are very likely to activate the panic, button in your brain, which is going to cause you to freeze, flee, or faint. Your poor brain just gets overwhelmed.
We're all three at the same time.
Yeah. It's like too much, too soon, circuits overloaded. I'm paralyzed, And so when people say, "Oh, I'm rushing 60 miles an hour toward the edge of a cliff, but I'll figure it out." I mean, you might, but you also might literally end up in that panic zone. What I say is, let's get a plan so you have some sense of control and direction. And then you're going to gradually move out of your comfort zone bit by bit. You're going to embrace this discomfort bit by bit. And before you know it, you're in a whole new comfort zone. You've been learning along the way. You've done this in a way that your psychological self can take it on board and use it for growth instead of paralysis. And that's, again, a much more empowered way to make this change. I fear for people who do it so suddenly, and only because I lived what that felt like. You can really get lost and lose your confidence. And
become paralyzed, not even think.
And you don't recognize yourself because you're normally the one who can get it done. And suddenly you can't. And it's even scarier.
Wow. So I know that you have a client named David Shapiro, who he's a tremendous role model for what you do. He reinvented himself at age 55 from a real estate lawyer to a successful Broadway producer. Okay, that's a real shift. So tell us David's story and how you helped him.
It is such a fabulous story. He, as you said, he was a real estate lawyer, 55, at one of the world's premier law firms and in Chicago. And he was very pleased with the career he'd had, but he was only 55. And so he was saying, I can't be done. I mean, come on.
Was he reaching that threshold where you get to a certain age and bye-bye?
He had made more money than he needed. And he just felt that he had come and done what he'd come to do. And it was time. He didn't have the same passion that he'd once had. And yet he still didn't quite know what he wanted to do going forward. And so I asked him, if you could do anything, and I guaranteed you total success, whatever that means to you, what would you do? And he said, I'm going to say this out loud, but I don't want you to write it down because it's so preposterous. But I would have been a Broadway producer, and the cherry on top would have been that I'd have won a Tony Award.
Oh my goodness.
And so I said, okay, I hear you. You don't want to tell me you're going to go try to do this, but let's break it down. If you did, what would you do? What do you need to know and who could help? So we made a little action plan. And I said, what do you have to lose doing the research and just meeting with some of these people that you know in the industry just to get their advice? Just what do you have to lose? And he's like, I have nothing to lose. You're right. And I'll humor you, So he goes down the road of this work. I know we're short on time, but I will just fast forward to this.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. So he met with people, he researched, he started to realize, okay, I see what's involved in this role. He got, he was putting the feelers out there, and lo and behold, he gets a phone call from one of the people he had met with who said, "Hey, David, I know, you're interested in this area. I've got a show I'm trying to raise money for. I'm not able to get it over the finish line. Would you be willing to help me?" And it was a small show. And David said, "You know what? Why not? I'll try. I'll give it a shot. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll try." Well, this small show did get funded, and it just got David a seat at the table. So when the next phone call came, it was for the Broadway show Hadestown, which he produced and he received a Tony Award for. That was 3 years after he met with me. He's now on his 15th show. He's got a very vibrant life as a Broadway producer between New York and Chicago. I just had dinner with him a year and a half ago. I mean, he's like, I am living the best life ever. I mean, this was utterly what I was meant to do. And he is just brimming with joy. And I mean, he did the work, but he needed somebody to give him a little bit of a pathway. And his comment to me later was, I would have over-lawyered my idea to death. I would have come up with all the reasons it was going to fail, all the reasons it couldn't work. And instead, what I needed to do was just get busy trying. And I love his story, not just because of the quote unquote accomplishment, but he's happy. He's happy.
Absolutely. I'm just sad that I don't know him better because I'm in the New York City area and he's got Broadway shows. Oh my goodness gracious.
Elephants for water, or water for elephants.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. That is like so wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's a great inspiration for people who are listening.
Yeah.
How you can turn your life around. You're saying, I can't. And the other thing that you do is you see things more from the higher view.
Yes.
So because they're enmeshed in their confusion and their feelings, right? So speaking of the higher view and being enmeshed in your feelings, what is your message about the importance of healing?
Yes.
Which is some of what you do that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, I have a couple thoughts on that I share with everybody. One is, you have worked so hard to get to this moment, and the promised land was not just a bank account. The promised land was, you get to flourish, you get to expand and grow and really take a bite out of life because you did it. Middle adulthood's hard. Come on. I mean, we got to raise families and create security and work, and you do all these things. Don't short sell what is possible when you get to this moment. And the other thing I tell people is, people are watching you. Your kids are watching you. Young people are watching you. And don't be that person who gives them another bad example of, retirement killed that guy. Be the person that flourishes, that shows them what is still possible. That's what we all need. We need inspiring people to lead the way. And I just remind people that somebody's watching you. And, you have the opportunity to give back in a way that is so beyond just earning a living and saving money. You've got time and energy and wisdom now, and that is available to the world. Find your way, and you're going to inspire others and build joy in yourself and other people. And
great role modeling! What great role modeling for kids, and it's teaching them not to be victims, not to have a that look at how my father or my mother reinvented themselves and what they did.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And my last question, of course, is, what's the Elizabeth tip on finding joy in life?
Well, I would say my big picture answer is, the more you can be connected into the moment you're in, the more joy you find, I think. But I will tell you what helps me do that more than anything else. And that is my little companion dog. And, it's a dog for me, but animals have a way of, they're always in the now, and they always love you. And they're the best example of unconditional love I've ever found on this planet. So for me, when I need to get myself back in the moment, I just go snuggle my dog.
Oh, and that brings you so much joy. Elizabeth, in closing, I'm reminded how tough it can be to walk away from a career that shaped a person's identity for so long. There's that quiet sadness in that transition. But what you do so beautifully is to help people move through that and start seeing what's possible. You show them that retirement isn't the end. It's more like a graduation, a chance to write a new chapter, one that is full of purpose and joy. Thank you from my heart for this inspiring conversation and for the meaningful work that you do to help so many others. I wish you abundant blessings.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure.
To be continued. Thanks for tuning in to Grief and Rebirth. Remember, you can dive deeper into everything we've discussed by checking out the show notes and all past episodes at ireneweinberg.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and wherever you love to hang out online. Plus, we're on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe and never miss a video. For those of you listening You'll find links to my 2 books, Good to the Last Drop and They Serve Bagels in Heaven, in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those books listed right above, so don't miss out. And here comes a special treat. If you sign up for Audible as a first-time user using my link, which you can find in the show notes, you can get They Serve Bagels in Heaven for free. And finally, people often ask me what I read, what I use, and what I recommend for healing and self-care. So I've carefully curated a compilation of those items to share with you. You can head over to kit.co/grief and rebirth to check them out. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, many blessings.